Just because old school margarine was bad for you doesn't mean butter is magically healthy now. All right, guys. Thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. This is one of these arguments I see brought up. It's this irrational argument that people make as to why butter is good for you, right? They can never seem to base it upon actual evidence in the lab, the epidemiology, what we see in the metabolic ward, that all show butter is pretty much a junk food. It's always some weird appeal to something else is worse than butter, okay? And the worst one is when they use margarine. And we're not talking about modern margarine, right? Margarine that's illegal to sell now, because technically the margarine you buy today in the U.S. that you can buy without the manufacturer going to prison for breaking federal law has less trans fats than butter does. Okay, we need to be clear on that point. And people are unaware of that because they don't keep up with the laws. They don't keep up with changes. You know, people always, they bring up the seed oil thing, and I'm not telling people to eat seed oils. I don't think you should be adding processed oils or fats to your food. But butter's a processed fat, right? It's a highly refined fat that's had all the good nutrients stripped out. You know, but they'll make this argument, but then they refer back to margarine. And the worst is when people start referring to old studies on margarine. But kind of my point to that is, well, what does that have to do with today? Yeah, we know the old school margarine was a bad experiment by food companies. Right? They went off the available data they had. And they're like, well, we know butter is bad for you based on what we can tell. So let's see if we can make something that replaces butter. Right? So let's make some other synthetic garbage to spread all over your bread. Instead of saying, hey, maybe we just shouldn't be spreading whatever butter likes. So maybe we don't need any of it. Maybe it's not necessary to enjoy bread. Right? My God, what did they do before they had butter? They were making bread back in the day. All right. They came up with this junk with the hopes that, well, there's less saturated fat. The problem is that they saturated a fat. They're like, well, how do we turn oil into the same consistency as butter? We need to find a way to saturate the fat. Because that's what makes butter solid at room temperature. Like these oils would normally be liquid, it's saturated. Changes the hydrogen structure. Makes it solid at room temperature. So it's like, well, just make the oil the same way. Well, that's how you get trans fats, which are horrible for you. Probably worse than saturated fat. Actually, the data, they used to argue if it was worse. Now we know they are. Similar pathway, though. So they came up with this stuff, hoping for a solution instead of just saying, hey, maybe since we know the butter's not good, let's just get rid of it. Do we really need a chemically created substitute for this junk food? Well, it turned out the margarine was horrible for you. Okay? Turned out that was the case. Lo and behold, we have something that's already a processed junk that we know is bad for you. Let's make another processed junk to replace it. Well, lo and behold, it was worse. But people keep falling back on that to say, see, butter's good for you. Yeah, that's not how it works. It was bad for you back then. Like, this wasn't overrated. It wasn't overblown. The data today is showing why. We don't just know that it's bad for you. We see why in the lab. We know what the problems are. But then they scream about the margarine. Well, here's the problem with that. It's already been acknowledged. It's illegal. Okay? The old school margarine they're talking about with the trans fats in it, it's been completely outlawed since 2020 in the United States by federal law. It's illegal. They actually outlawed it in 2015, by the way. But the FDA needed to give food companies who had become reliant upon using it in all their processed junk, like, well, you're going to have to get all these trans fats out of your food. We're going to give you 3 years to do it. Okay? So this is what happened. Law was passed 2015. They gave them until 2018 to remove everything. It got extended due to some problems in the food industry. They lobbied to get it extended, and it got extended to 2020. Meaning they're like, we need you to start phasing it out. We're going to give you these years to do it, and it has to be out of all the food. by then. That's it. There's no more. It's like you're going to be fined millions of dollars and your executives are going to go to prison. Okay? They got it held off a little longer, and then 2020, it all went into full effect. After 2020, there is no trans fats allowed to be added to our food in America. It's illegal. Heavy fines, possible jail time. So it's gone. Other than natural trans fats, guess what? There are some in butter, but there's none in the weird butter substitute margarines now. Oh, so we could argue, looking at the data, the current margarine isn't as bad as butter, but it's still, a refined junk. But that's the problem with all of this. People have these conversations and they're like, aha, look at this. Well, this margarine turned out to be worse. Well, yeah, this was not a good idea. People should have just said, hey, maybe we need to find something that's not butter-like. Maybe we should put something else on our bread. Let's try some cream cheese or something. I don't know. Some yogurt. There you go. Spread some yogurt on there. Some nice thick yogurt. Which actually works pretty good, right? Some of that 000 or something on there, you're good. But no. People will still harp on about it. Well, that margarine, well, who cares? Did you build a time machine? Are you going back in time to a time when they could sell it to you? It's illegal to create artificial trans fats and sell them in America as food for humans. And now we are back to the position we used to be, but with more data. Butter is still bad for you. Like, that hasn't changed. Just because something came along that was created that was worse, and notice, created because so is butter. Butter doesn't occur in nature. It's a man-made, highly refined food that we made out of starting with cream that was skimmed off of milk, which already is now automatically less healthy than milk. We know that. We know why. I've covered this in the past. And then we churn the hell out of it. Change the chemical nature of it further. Right? It's still unhealthy for you. That didn't change. We have even more data kind of showing the problem. It's not something you should be eating in significant amounts. But again, people want to use this other weird logic. Because we created something even worse for you than this thing we created that's bad for you, we suddenly magically take this thing we created is now natural and healthy. Again, also appeal to nature. And it's neither one anyways. This is not good critical thinking, people. This is a low-level thought. Low-level critical thinking, low IQ, low intelligence mindset. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.